Dobrodošli na Descon 6 online od 27. do 31. oktobra.
Meanings, reputation. Furthermore, in the third one, this structure lies upon the top of the exploitation of human minds, bodies and nature. Footnote 9. Creation of individual. In his famous essay Postscript on the Societies of Control, Deleuze envisions a form of power that is no longer based on the production of individuals but on the modulation of individuals. Individuals are deconstructed into numeric footprints, or individuals, that are administered through data banks. Our online behavior is captured, processed, and deconstructed into statistical vectors, clusters, patterns, and anomalies. Each move we make is carefully analyzed by thousands of mathematical functions, algorithms, and machine learning systems. This system does not see us through linear narratives emerging from our browsing behavior, metadata, or movements in physical space but as n-dimensional statistical projections. Each and every one of our clicks sharpens the resolution and complexity of this abstract and constantly changing statistical portrait, or data body. Footnote 13. Lenses. Instruments of measurement and perception always come with inbuilt aberrations. In the same way that the lenses of microscopes and telescopes are never perfectly curvilinear and smooth, these logical lenses embody faults and biases. To understand machine learning and algorithms and register their impact on society is to study the degree by which social data are diffracted and distorted by these lenses. The shape of the algorithmic lenses is carefully crafted to project the image that is in accordance with the platform's financial interest and political goals and values. Footnote 14. Filters. Aside from instruments of digital truth and order embodied in their algorithms and neural networks, platforms often imply direct rules and regulations. They have direct power of regulation of what can be seen or said, what kind of content can and cannot exist in their universe. Here we are visually representing those rules and regulations as filters. Similarly to the algorithmic lenses, the fabric of those filters is crafted according to the platform's financial interests and political goals and values. Footnote 15. Bubbles. The flow of the spectacle is not a single stream but billions of personalized streams of images, sounds, and meanings. Based on the multidimensional portraits of the individuals, algorithms, and neural networks are carefully directing personalized plays for each user. In this simulacrum, our main actor is a center of a small universe in which his or her opinion and attitude matters. Users trapped in their bubbles, caves, are positioned within different algorithmic and statistical territories. The mountains and valleys of those multidimensional, ever-changing invisible landscapes are clustering individual bubbles and creating new relations, taxonomies, and ontologies. Footnote 16. Projection of the world. Instruments of measurement and perception are ranking, defining hierarchies and relations between content, users, and meaning. They define the digital regime of truth and order. This regime is a prism through which the world is projected in the form of the constant stream of spectacles on the walls of the caves. Information and empowered by the digital extractivism tools of the information age, everything becomes the potential frontier for expansion and extraction. From the depth of DNA code, every single cell of the human organism, vast frontiers of human emotions, human behavior, social relations to nature as a whole, everything becomes the territory for the new extractivism. Thousands of corporate and government actors compete to stick their flags into the uncharted territories of our behavioral, emotional and cognitive landscapes, invading deeper and deeper into our bodies and minds. Once the territory is invaded, the process of enclosure and exploitation is established. Footnote 18. Enclosure. The enclosure of biodiversity and knowledge is the final step in a series of enclosures that began with the rise of colonialism, Vladan explains. However, new forms of extractivism are expanding the biodiversity and knowledge enclosure. This is why we are not speaking anymore just about the knowledge economy but about the attention economy, emotion economy, and many other new economies being born from the invasion of new territories of extraction. Footnote 19. Affinity to infinity. In his essay Presenting the Unpresentable, the Sublime, Jean-Francois Lyotard introduces the phrase affinity to infinity. In his view, the fields of contemporary art, technoscience, and capitalism have the same aspiration to push boundaries towards a potentially infinite horizon. In the transition to the information age, capitalism was given a chance to satisfy its affinity for infinity, to form and conquer an infinite number of new territories, to create new mechanisms for the accumulation of capital within these new spaces, and to formulate new forms of exploitation. Footnote 20. Beyond the capture. We are standing at the imaginary edge and looking into the land beyond the limits of extraction. The land outside their capacity to capture, conquer, and commodify. Is there any word or meaning that is not captured by this gigantic metastructure and millions of their synthetic spiders and sensors capturing multiple aspects of reality? How can we investigate but not harm those fragile words or meanings that somehow escape the capture process? How can we speak about them without exposing and capturing them? How do we care for and cultivate ecologies that exist beyond the border of capture? Footnote 21. Rhizomatic surveillance. The planetary scale surveillance assemblage is one of the critical infrastructures behind new extractivism practices. Thousands of corporate and government actors are independent of each other, collecting information about us. Through the invisible network of data dealers, public and not public partnerships, those pieces of information are in a constant flow forming one functional entity. Surveillance assemblage can be seen as a rhizomatic structure described by Deleuze and Guattari. Footnote 22. Capture agents. At the end of each of the rhizome's roots, the tentacles of the planetary surveillance rhizome, there are one or many sensors, capture agents. They can take many forms and sizes. From the tiny pieces of code, crawlers that wander the web collecting information about each web page, over the sensors catching heartbeats and surveillance cameras capturing our faces, to the complex network of satellites orbiting Earth and locating devices. Footnote 23. Body and mind as territory. In our anthropocentric world, the territory of the human body and mind is one of the most explored and exploited extraction strata. The process of quantification is reaching into the human affective, cognitive, and physical worlds. Every form of biodata, including forensic, biometric, sociometric, and psychometric, are being captured and logged into databases for AI training, psychological profiling, nano-targeting, and many other forms of data exploitation. This crusade is not just about the quantity of data but also about the quality and diversity of data in order to achieve a full spectrum of color and resolution in our multi-dimensional portraits that they are painting. Footnote 24. Digital labor. As elaborated in Christian Fuchs's book Digital Labor and Karl Marx, different forms of labor and relations are part of the contemporary production of digital technology. Slave work in mineral extraction in Congo, primitive accumulation and absolute surplus value production at Foxen in China, body shopping of Indian ICT workers, an army of ghost micro-workers behind the Mechanical Turk platform, Amazon distribution center workers in the cage, unpaid users and the brutal labor aristocracy are all part of the evolved triangle irregular trade system within the planetary scale factory. Footnote 25. Behavioral surplus. As Shoshana Zuboff points out, surveillance capitalism renders behavior so that it can be passed as observable, measurable units. Once it's rendered as behavior, it is turned into data. This is what she calls behavioral surplus. Since our bodies, minds, and behavior are one of the ultimate resources for the new extractivism, every segment of our existence can be seen as a form of direct or indirect labor producing data as a behavioral surplus. When we breathe, walk, or sleep, every single emotion that we feel, our attention, our body temperature, or diseases that we have, everything can produce a behavioral surplus if being captured by this giant surveillance apparatus. In that sense, even our bare existence can be seen as labor. Footnote 26. Digital identity labor. As pointed out by Christian Lukács in the essay Colonization with Love, freelancers, self-employed, unemployed and all those grey areas in between that now constitute the world of labor need to spend more and more hours maintaining their profiles and offering indirectly their expertise, experience, success stories, opinions and documentation of their works and activities in a similar fashion like sex workers in the windows of red light districts. Digital identity labor is the forced labor of the 21st century, and as we mentioned before, opting out is essentially a fantasy. This creates an auto-disciplinary society specialized in the detection and targeting of human anomalies. Footnote 27. Non-human labor. We can zoom out into deep time and consider the labor of prehistoric plants and animals embedded in the formation of carbon that is being burned as a fuel for the data centers, infrastructure, and our devices. Millions of years of non-human labor have been burned for just 200 years of industrial spectacle. Nevertheless, we don't need to go so far into the past, and we can try to observe all the labor existing within the microbiome of our bodies. Footnote 28. Fractal supply chains. Supply chains hidden behind the engines of extractivism are black boxes as much as neural networks or algorithms hidden behind interfaces. Californian ideology presents itself in the form of colorful, playful offices filled with all year-long Silicon Valley spring sunshine, where digital bourgeoisie enjoined labor and free 5-star food. In the anatomy, we used the image of the Sierpinski fractal to illustrate the complexity of supply chains and the process of exploitation embedded in those processes. Each triangle of this fractal represents one phase in the production process, from birth in a geological process, through life as a consumer product, and ultimately to death in an electronic stun. Footnote 29. Heteronation and ghost labor. Within the fractal supply chain, we see a perpetual dance between human labor, non-human labor, earth labor, and automatization. As pointed out in the Newscope by Matteo Pasquinelli, automation is a myth, because machines, including AI, continuously call for human help. Hamad Iqbal and Boninardi call this kind of participation heteronation. Another term for this invisible human labor embedded in almost every phase of the production process is ghost labor. Footnote 30. Blood, sweat and toxic lakes. I wish to God these calculations had been executed by steam, said Charles Babbage, and developed his plans for the difference engine in summer 1814. More than 200 years later, the engines of new extractivism are still running on burning coal and human sweat. Every click or swipe we make online creates one little hole in the ground, filled with toxic waste and toxic clouds. Every movement of materials and data within the planetary scale factory has its own hidden prize. Supply chains are optimized towards maximizing profit for a few, while the real costs of the destruction that follows are shared among all the living entities on the planet in the present and the future. In the words of Mackenzie Wark, the Anthropocene is a series of metabolic rifts, where one molecule after another is extracted by labor and technique to make things for humans, but the waste products don't return so that the cycle can renew itself. The soils deplete, the seas recede, the climate alters, the gyre widens, a world on fire. Footnote 31. Expanding the gap. While one primarily functions in the space of a cave factory, the other serves the materiality of this space in the mining pits, factory halls and office spaces of the spectacle of the global production of technology, energy and resources. Footnote 32. Triangular trade. Slavery was at the heart of the development of the modern planetary scale global economy. As Barbara Solo illustrates, by the late 17th century, the New England merchant, the Barbadian planter, the English manufacturer, the English slave trader and the African slave traders and merchants were joined in an intricate web of interdependent economic activity. From those days, the same model of constant flow within the vast fractal production chains expanded in time, space and complexity. The transatlantic slave trade evolved into the contemporary planetary scale factory. Footnote 33. Chains of digital colonialism. This map is proposing an extensive understanding of this term. Traditional colonial practices of control over critical assets, trade routes, natural resources, and exploitation of human labor are still deeply embedded in the contemporary supply chains, logistics and assembly lines of digital content, products and infrastructure. In that sense, chains of digital colonialism are made both on the extraction of digital surplus and the traditional exploitation of labor and resources. The end.
Well, people are typing bravo, clap, clap, and lots of comments in the chat room. Thank you, Vladan, for this performance. I'm glad you're staying here with us to have more questions and maybe say a few words about what inspired you to use the graphoscope and the overhead projector and to publish an LP. And is it Baudrillard? You've been working on AI and deconstructing things behind technology for quite some time. This is, wow, this is just a new way of presenting your work. So thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. People could, I let you make any comments and also say that at least 2 years ago, we understood that we're still not certain if the universe is just a fractal, since the fractal's been a part of many of the parts, or it's not. But we will share the PDF of your presentation with all Descon registrants, or if you haven't registered and just joined the session, you can definitely will publish it somewhere. As Jeff is saying, he'd love to see the text, and that the captions were sometimes hard to read. Well, with that, yes, I think let's have a chat. Let's try and deconstruct what are these costs behind the technology and social and ecological and so on.
Sorry, I will speak over all the microphone. Do you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you well.
Okay, great. Because I think my setup doesn't work so well. Sorry, I was not able to hear like last maybe 1 minute because we were trying to switch devices and stuff. But if you want, I can try to explain like why this is like some kind of, because in the last I don't know how many years I'm just like sending PDFs, and so I get a bit tired of like this kind of like, let's say, not material aspect of like presenting things. And then now, because I have some exhibition at the Museum of Contemporary Art here, and because we are locked now, finally I'm able to do something, not just to go around and be productive. So it made me like some time to play with the different, like, let's say, like dead media or zombie media or whatever. And then, so this is just one of the things I was working on. Basically, this is the new map or word that is called the new extractivism. And the thing is, like, I don't know, this is somehow different than the other maps. It's mostly like some kind of like the authors and books and like philosophers that I like. When I was doing all of this other research from before, I was basically illustrating and trying to create some kind of like big assemblage of different concepts and ideas into one map. So here you don't see the map. Hey, maybe we can see it. Wait. Okay. Sorry, just a second. So basically, at the end of this, it's one big map that basically, joined together all of those like different slides you're seeing. And yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that. And it's kind of different than the other ones. This one, it's more like some kind of mapping of different concepts and ideas related to this kind of what I like to call new extractivism. But basically, it's not new extractivism, it's the old one, but it's kind of like upgraded with the tools of digital extraction, let's say. Yeah.
It's the ongoing. You have a question from Alessandro Ludovico, who, as we know, or some of mine know, has Neural magazine. He says, is it correct that you produced only one single copy of the vinyl?
Yeah.
And can you elaborate why you choose this combination of media?
So there are like two main reasons why I choose like one copy. First one, and I think it's the basic one, it's like financial one, because it's like done in our like home production, so like it was not so like like we didn't have a budget for this. Or another more conceptual reason, it's like I think it's kind of like we should try to do less, and this is this kind of idea of degrowth and idea of and in a way, like just existence of this like one physical piece of vinyl. It doesn't go in this direction of art and to create some kind of precious object, because like in a way I probably is going to lose this LP like really fast in our messy flat. But I don't know. I think it's in a way I was kind of fed up of being tired of this easiness of digital production, in a sense of like how everything is like accessible, how everything is like all over the place, and this is the reason why I feel like great pleasure in producing the things object, and to suffer with all of those things in combination of I like the graphoscope as a tool, because it's like when I was working with Matteo Pasquinelli on Noscope, I really like this idea of like seeing those like technologies, for example, AI and this kind of data analysis as some kind of like a mechanical object for like magnification. And in a sense, this graphoscope is kind of the same thing. But it also has this kind of really beautiful dimension of some kind of like school educational object. Also presentation. So for example, music that was going in the background is I downloaded from YouTube, and the name of the file was elevator music. So in a way, just like you are traveling in one elevator through these kind of like forms of extractions and stuff like this.
It will be a long elevator ride.
Yeah.
1 hour.
Yeah. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, so I think that was why you choose the combination of media, or are you going to use it to teach your students now, as during COVID you may have to also stay at home and use graphoscope?
I will, but the problem I have, I was thinking it will be more easy, but in a sense I spend like hours today in order to do the setup because of the sound. So it's hard, you know. It's a great pleasure to do it, but in a way you need to invest a lot of energy into like dealing with materiality of this kind of production. So, but I was hoping, you know, like because like in some sense I'm looking forward that maybe this LP will replace me a bit, in a sense that I don't need to repeat the same story again and again and again, so I can play every time this, you know, LP.
You can do some other things. New things. I think we have a comment or a question from Vladan Đaković, who presented to us on Tuesday about his device, low encryption voice device, that also utilizes a very low energy and is kind of very wary of the CPU that technology uses. He says, does the sheer ineffectiveness of non-electronic media bother you? The voice is drowned in the deluge of electronical multiplication. And then Alessandro says, elevator music is actually a specific genre, quite connected to capitalism strategies. What a coincidence. So does the sheer ineffectiveness of non-electronic media bother you? Maybe.
No, it doesn't bother me. I was just like thinking, in a sense, it will be more easy, but it's not. No, it doesn't bother me. I enjoy a lot, and in a sense, I think because we are now stuck in our caves here in our homes and trying to survive all of this like cataclysm that is surrounding us. So I think, you know, like it's a good way to entertain yourself, and so yeah.
Certainly something we haven't seen before. So thank you. The long play, or the LP that you recorded, was that like a difficult process, or not just time exhaustive, but like?
No. The thing is, like, so by doing different kinds of, like, you know, dealing with let's say non-digital formats brought me to explore different ways. So for example, because like the you know, shipment from, because I recorded this in London, of course I didn't went there, but somehow I sent this digitally and then they send me back. So basically I was using some kind of like a network of distribution that exists here, mostly in Novi Sad, like importing goods on some other way, some kind of almost gray economy zone of movement of goods in a sense of like
Importing.
yeah, it's really interesting to do like production of things when you are not able to move, and when the borders are closed and stuff like this. So it has this kind of like parallel universe of like doing something in this kind of pandemic times.
Yeah, you have more questions here. One more from, I believe, Jeff. He's typing, he's saying that inevitability seems to be a theme in your talk. There can't be any surprises anymore as we're turned into parts of the system you describe. What might be some forms of surprise or ways to generate surprise?
Well, I'm kind of known in so some kind of like I'm creating for sometimes like really big black and dark, let's say, maps of mapping different forms of like complex relations that are part of contemporary capitalism, and in a way and the question of like what can be good, and it's something that is asked a lot of times, what we can do, what is the some kind of counter narrative or whatever, what we can do, and in a sense I don't feel comfortable in being capable to understand that and to articulate some kind of positive aspects. I think what we are going to see now after this is, for example, one of the best websites and design this website that I saw in my life. So for example, that was for me like surprising, and then it showed us like what like there is some hope and stuff like this. But in general, I don't deal with and I know this is like kind of like a safe position not to deal with the solutions, but in a way the solar low tech magazine, so I don't, and time to time I'm seeing like beautiful, mostly coming from like the art or philosophy or media theory. There is a lot of wonderful things happening, and in a way the reason why I created this map and all of the beautiful concepts that are part of this map is some kind of my surprises. In a sense, it's something that I like, I appreciate, and I believe it have a lot of sense. Maybe it sounds again a bit dark at the end, but still, like if we are, as a being, if we are able to create so many beautiful concepts around the problem, then I think we are on the good way. Like there is a hope that something will happen. But in a sense, like for example, like one of the allegories here, it's of course allegory of Plato's cave. So it's more or less, like the same problem that it's now for like 2,000 years, 2,400 or so, something like this. So. But I think it's important that we think and rethink all the time all of those problems and try to come up with when I was doing like more like a technical research with like Facebook and surveillance and stuff, then I had like for a long time this idea that like the technical knowledge, legal knowledge is really important. But then more and more I was going deeper into this kind of let's say the depths of black boxes and exploitation and stuff like this. More and more the only useful way to look at those black boxes was from the position of like philosophy and media theory and art.
So Philip is asking, is voice on your record text to speech or regular human speaker? And if it is, does it bother you that the algorithm took a gig from a regular human being?
It does. It does. Yeah. Of course, it's Amazon as some kind of like
Rhetorical.
continuation of my one research before. So it basically I use the same algorithm, same neural network that is basically used for Amazon Alexa device, right? And it sounds really good, I think. And yeah, it does bother me too. But in a way, that was like this is this kind of like, and the reason why I don't think I'm outside of the cave. You know, I don't think I'm outside of the jail. You know, I am there, and one of the strings that pushes down up. Maybe it was not visible so much because it's a really messy setup, but it's like it's this comfort, and in a sense, I did it because it was easier, because I didn't know how to do it properly. You know, like with a real human being. Or another option was also to outsource this to some kind of low paid. You know, so there is a variety of options how to do voice easily and with the exploitation, but there is not so much of how to do it properly. So I didn't know how to make it. Maybe I should. I don't know. Probably you're right. But I'm not purist in that sense, I guess. Thank you, Philip, for this. Really, thank you.
So some of your maps are even hanging not just in museums, but in some European institutions. I believe in Council of Europe or EU Parliament, you have a map which is Anatomy of AI. And do you think that policymakers and I would say bureaucrats that sit in some of those get your story because they ask you to display your map? And have you come across any sign of change, a light at the end of a tunnel? Is it all doom and gloom?
No, I think that there is. I don't think this one is going to be so widely accepted by so many different stratas as Anatomy of an AI was, but no, some of those maps, in a way, when we were creating those maps, both like Facebook and the things that they did with the Share Lab and also Anatomy of an AI, it was never meant to be an art piece. It somehow incidentally went into those places, but in a way it was mostly meant to be a tool for understanding complex problems that we were facing. So it was like either to understand, I don't know, like the algorithmic transparency and what's hidden behind those like systems, or is supply chains, or like the deep time of different devices. So in that sense, like I was less surprised that those maps are hanging in some kind of EU institutions than that they are hanging in museums now and galleries, because I didn't saw them as an art. But now I'm more and more like I'm okay with that idea as well. Like it's okay. I cannot say that I understand completely the art world and stuff like this, but yeah. And in a sense, if you remember before, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, like most of the time those maps and drawings of like, you know, like Facebook and other research with hacking team with other were mostly distributed and were like appearing on different kinds of like internet freedom conferences and events, you know, like, so it was more like a, you know, tool for policy than being as a you know, like some kind of art thingy. But yeah, but I'm not so sure that I want to go back to the policy time. In a sense, I feel okay where I'm now.
You seem to have the choice. So, well, a thought occurred to me because our next speaker is Kris De Decker from Low Tech magazine, and I thought it would really be nice to have you, guys together to discuss this. However, we have still some 9 minutes to the hour before Kris starts his presentation about Low Tech magazine. He's a founder of Low Tech, and as you mentioned, and you love his website. And originally we were going to do a workshop where we're going to meet face to face and build one of these solar websites. But I'll just ask to see if people have still some more questions about, for you. And
hey, Des, what happened with the PDF? Did I ever send you?
No, you didn't. I sent you an email reminder, so we can share it if you like to everyone who registered, or
yeah, I can, because like I understand that it's really hard to see on this kind of display, like all the details and in a way how this really looks like. So in a way I can send you. We can even the thing is, like, we still didn't publish this. It was first, there was some kind of exhibition happening in Darknet, like I think last week or 2 weeks ago, and this is the first thing, the place where this map was exhibited, and that was kind of nice in a way. That was
Darknet.
Yeah, it was curated by, so you were able only to access the website with through the browser. Yeah, and but it was idea to publish this like in few weeks after that, but now we didn't manage to do this. So in a sense, it's still like not published. There is like, but I think in let's say week or two, maybe we will be able to publish this in form of some website, and then but before that, I can send to all the people who are here.
Wonderful.
PDF version of that.
Thank you. I think what we'll do, we'll definitely have a recording published on Descon YouTube channel of your this premiere. Thank you very much. And then we can also have some footage that will point to the site when it becomes public, so people can go there and download the PDF as well. But immediately, yes, even tonight we can distribute to those who joined us in the room. And I'd just like to really thank you for taking time to do this and join us. And we have about 5 minutes, and we can continue chatting in the room. And we can get Kris to start and upload his presentation to see if he joins, and to see if he's in the room. Yes, he's there. Great. And with that, a really huge applause to you, and a virtual one. And please stay on. Okay, we're gonna listen to some music now until in a few minutes, and then Kris will set up his slides. We're doing this big blue button the first time, and I think people are liking it. At least that's the feedback Descon has been getting.
Od 27. do 31.
And with
oktobra.
that, I also like to thank our sponsors for this online edition, and also our artists Olivia Solis and Descon team, Milica Čubrilović and Jana Vukčević, and the Hacklab and the ISOC Belgrade chapter, and the whole of community that is, I hope, growing. Thanks. With that, we will start the recording, and we have Kris De Decker, who is the creator and author of Low Tech magazine, and he publishes his blog also in English, Dutch, and Spanish. And so the basis of the Low Tech magazine is that it refuses to assume that every problem has a high-tech solution. And since many years ago, I guess 2007, you were also a creator and author of No Tech magazine. And you also write for Demand Center at the Lancaster University in the UK, where you research energy demand as an outcome of social practices. You are also co-creator of the Human Power Plant, which is an artistic project that investigates the possibilities of human energy production in a modern society. And you do that in cooperation with Mel Smets since 2017. And something that we're all waiting to hear and see is your creation, the solar-powered website that you created together with Mario Zucca and Royal Roscombe Abbing. So, Kris, welcome. Huge thanks for being patient, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Also, thanks for your patience, because this always seems to happen to me. Whenever I get close to high technology, everything breaks. Next slide, please. Okay. Yeah, so in 2007, like you said, I started Low Tech magazine basically as a way of criticizing the vision of a high-tech sustainable society. And what is a high-tech sustainable society? It's pretty simple to explain. It's just like we replace all the fossil fuel power plants by renewable power plants, and we keep on living the way we are living. So we keep driving fast and heavy cars and things like that. And next slide, please. Yeah, there's 57 slides. So yeah, so I will keep this very short. There's quite a lot of problems with this vision because renewable energy is not comparable to fossil fuels. One thing is that it has much lower power density, meaning that you need a lot more space to produce a similar amount of energy. So, and as you can see here, this is a solar power plant. It's not really nature. It's basically an industrial site. And if we just gonna keep the energy demand the same, but then power everything with solar panels and wind turbines, we also gonna destroy the planet. Second, and that's the next slide, renewable energy is also not always available. So fossil fuels, you can use it whenever you feel like. Wind and sun, that's another matter. There's no sun at night. The wind is very unpredictable. And then that means that you need energy storage if you want to keep the whole, the energy month, if you want to meet the energy month every time of the day and the year. And then the third problem, and that's the next slide, is that our renewable energy power plants are not very sustainable in themselves. So for a solar panel, that's quite obvious. It's all made of mined materials. There's very energy intensive production techniques behind it. And with wind turbines, for example, this is the blade of a windmill. A 3 megawatt wind turbine has 50 tons of plastic inside that cannot be recycled. So this is basically why we cannot simply switch power sources and then keep on living the way we do. Next slide, please. So let's first look at the lifestyle, the technology. So if you switch from fossil fuels to renewable energy, which is a totally different type of energy source, you also have to adapt the technology. And if we stick with the car as an example, you would think that by now we would have managed to make cars that are more energy efficient than this one from 1949. That's 80 years ago almost. But as you can see in the next slide, if you look at the smallest car of the same manufacturer, and you compare the specifications, you see that the fuel use is exactly the same. It's 4.4 liters per 100 kilometers. So actually, cars use as much energy today as they did 80 years ago. And that's strange because the technology has become much more energy efficient. So the engines have become much more energy efficient. So what happened, instead of translating this advance in energy efficiency into cars that use less energy, we just added a lot of power. We made them heavier, we made them faster, we put them full of electronics. And the result is that all this advance in energy efficiency is eaten up by other things. And as you will see later, that's also the same for the internet. So the same is also with electric cars. This is an electric car from 1908. It had a 100-mile range, 160 kilometers, which is the same range as the one from the Nissan Leaf from 2012. So again, all the advance has gone into heavier vehicles, more powerful vehicles, more comfortable vehicles. So what we need to do, and stick with the example of cars in the next slide, if you want to switch from fossil fuels to renewables, you have to make a different type of car. You have to make a car that is very light, that is slower, that is less powerful, and that has not all the comfort and the electronics. So this could be one example, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be less fun, because as you can see, this guy has a lot of fun. So in that sense, it's one thing. Now, the next slide. Now let's look at the power plants themselves. You can slowly continue scrolling because, so this is an old, you can stop here for a while. This is an old sawmill from the Netherlands in the 1700s. And this map you see here, it's it's an industrial site in the 1700s in the Netherlands. So north of Amsterdam, you had 1,000 windmills. They were all industrial windmills. So renewable energy is nothing new. We did it before. And here, for example, in the Netherlands, you had a whole industry running on wind power in the 17th century. And that is interesting because how did they deal with, yeah, wait, the next slide, sorry. Bit confusing. Next slide, please. Yeah, so these windmills, they did everything. They were sawing wood. Next slide is making paper. They were polishing glass, all basic industrial processes. Next slide, please. And the same happened, the transportation system was also completely built on wind. It was sailboats, and the global trade is nothing new. So thousands of years ago, we already traded goods, and we brought passengers all over the world, and we didn't need fossil fuels for that. We did it with wind power. And it's interesting to look at the past, which is kind of like what Low Tech Magazine does the whole time. Like, what can we learn from our ancestors? So how did they deal with the fact, for example, that there's not always wind? And then they had a very simple solution. Well, if there's no wind, then we don't work. We don't operate our factories, or we don't operate our sailboats. We do some other work, or we have a party. It's very simple idea that was working for hundreds of years. Next slide. And that is something that we could do again with factories, for example. Many of the basic industrial processes are still very simple. It's like breaking things, drilling things, sawing things, polishing things. You can perfectly do that with a power source that is not always available. Like, imagine if this factory would be producing very small cars, and it would be powered by wind or by sun, and there is no wind or sun. Well, it just stops, and we come back the next day. Next slide. We could also go back to sail power. We learned a lot. We improved a lot the technology since the age of sail. Here you see an example. These guys that are in the front are actually on a stationary bike, and they operate the hydraulic steering system of the boat. And before that happened with a hand power, but our legs are much stronger. So now they can do it actually with half of the people of before. So this is not a practical boat for transporting goods or people, but the system of the steering, for example, could help to reduce manpower. Next slide. And then we could do a totally new application of this very old approach. Is we could run freight trains whenever the sun shines or the wind blows, simply putting solar panels and wind turbines along the line. If there's no renewable energy, well, the train just waits. And we could also make, of course, the power plants themselves renewable, recyclable again, because this is an old windmill blade, and it was entirely made of natural materials that could be perfectly reused again. And then in the next slide, you see that an American researcher actually did that. She designed a whole method to build large windmill blades using modern wood production techniques, and you can build them much bigger than in the old days. And yeah, so this was a quick introduction, just kind of why I always look to the past for inspiration. And now I want to talk about how I use these insights in my own life. So I try to practice what I preach, partly because, yeah, I want to give an example, but also because it's a very interesting research position. You learn a lot when you try the things and not just write about them. So this, for example, is my my office where I'm sitting now at the moment, actually. And 4 years ago, I decided to get it off the grid and power it with solar panels. And because I'm in an apartment, I rent a place, I cannot really put the common solar installation on the roof. So I used a whole different approach. I put small window panels on the solar panels on the window sills. Next slide. And that has a lot of advantages in the sense that you can first you can clean them regularly, which you already win a lot of power in the sense that a dirty solar panel generates less power. But also 4 times a year I adapt the tilt of the solar panel. So in summer it goes horizontal, in winter it goes vertical, and that gives you, especially in winter when you need it most, it gives a huge boost of energy. You cannot do that when you're when the installation is on the roof. Next slide. So yeah, this is very simple, built with Meccano stuff. Next slide. Yeah, and then what we do with solar power is that we do something very stupid these days. So solar panels supply 12-volt direct current, and that's also what our computers and our electronic lighting and many devices use. But we convert everything to 220 and then back to 12 volts, and then you lose like 20–30% of the energy. So instead, it's much more useful to just use low voltage appliances. And for example, this is a lamp. So you just switch the how you say, enchufe? Yeah, I don't know. You a 12-volt lamp and a different type of connector. And in the next slide, you see you can do the same with your laptop. You just buy one of these adapters for the car, and then you can straight plug it into the solar charger. And now, if there is enough sun, I mean, I'm in Barcelona, I have a southern exposure, so I have a lot of sun. And if it's sunny, I can do whatever I want, even with these 60-watt power of solar panels. I can operate the lighting in the evening, I can operate my laptop. But when it gets cloudy, well, I have to kind of go back to the approach of the pre-industrial people. I have to adapt my work to the weather. And for that, I have this barometer, so I can kind of plan a bit in the future. So one thing I learned is that researching takes almost double the energy of my laptop as when I'm writing. So, okay, then the researching happens when it's sunny, and writing happens when it's cloudy. And next slide, please. And if it's really, really bad weather, yeah, I rediscovered the typewriter, and I actually, it's a great invention, or say, yeah, or a reinvention, because not only works, but it also makes you concentrate on the writing. So there's no Twitter updates, Facebook updates, news about the Corona crisis. You just can focus on the writing. And okay, so now we get to the website. I kind of made a long introduction, but I hope it shows how the website came to be. This is the old website that was made in 2007. It was made on Typepad. It's a very old-fashioned blog software. It's from the 90s. It has very limited options, but it's very easy. But over the years, I got often the comment from readers like, hey, man, you're Mr. Low Tech and you're telling us to be critical of high technology, but you're using the internet to spread your message. And of course, I have no other choice, because if I would photocopy my articles, nobody would read them. But at the same time, and because I like to practice what I preach, I thought, that's interesting. Could maybe a website also be made sustainable, low-tech, inspired by old-fashioned technology? And so when in 2017, I got an offer from 2 then students of RISD Academy in the United States to redesign the publication. And that's when I thought, okay, now let's try and build a low-tech website. And to know how to build a low-tech website, you first have to know what's the problem with the internet. And that's the next slide. So there's 2 main reasons why the energy use of internet keeps increasing and really quickly. First is that the average website or web page or other application becomes more heavy. or bigger as you want. And just like in real life, if you have to transport something from one place to another, the heavier the object is, the more energy it will take. And that's the same with a website. And so the energy use goes up because we build fatter and fatter websites. And it's not only the energy use, but it also makes modern websites totally inaccessible for people who are on very slow internet connections and with very old computers. Like we call it the World Wide Web, but only half of the world has a decent, not even half of the world has a decent internet connection. And the second reason, and that's the next slide, is that, yeah, the time we spent online compared to 15 years ago, we were only online when we were sitting at our desk, in the library, at work, at home. But now we are online basically wherever we are and whenever. So, and often using more than one device. So you have a smartphone, you have a tablet, you have the laptop running. And yeah, obviously these two together, you have heavier content and you have more time online. That means that you're gonna use a lot more energy. And next slide. So the first thing we did was to make a light website, to make it as light as possible. And here you see the result of one of the pages, one of the most heaviest pages on the website. So it's 6.5 megabyte page size for the old one and less than 1 for the new one. So that's a factor of 6 difference. Also, the requests to the server go down from 130 to 27. And you immediately see the consequence for the load time. So instead of waiting 10 seconds, you get the website in less than 1 second. This means reduced energy use, but also that everyone can access it. So we got some mails from people, I don't know where in the jungle, that say like, hey man, I can access your website. That's so amazing. And next slide. Yeah, so how did we do that? The main decision was to make a static website, and that was the big surprise of the whole project, and that's kind of explains the introduction. So it's a kind of a motto of Low-Tech Magazine. When you want to find a solution for a problem, look to the past and you will find it. And I was very surprised to learn that the same goes with the internet, with a modern technology like the internet. Just go back to the beginning of the web, and you see that people built websites that were much more efficient, and that was the static website. So today, most websites are dynamic websites, which means they actually don't exist. They get generated whenever someone asks for the page. And why do we do that? Because we want it to be interactive, and because we want to reflect every change immediately. So when someone posts a comment, when someone puts a thumb up, things like that. But although like some websites really need that, but the majority of websites doesn't change so often. And then it's very wasteful of energy to just rebuild everything again whenever someone asks for the page. So a static website is basically file storage. It works in the same way as we all access documents on our computer. We open a folder, we click on a document, and it opens. And the same happens in the solar-powered website. You visit it, you click on a document, and it opens. And that kind of makes it 10 times less energy intensive than a dynamic website. So yeah, one of the only actually disadvantage for us is that you cannot automate the comments. So now people have to send me an email, and then I manually put it into the document every few days. And the website is regenerated 3-4 times a week, and then it shows. Next slide, please. This is also very manual. I like it, how you change the slides. So a second very important design decision that we made was the dithering of the images. So the images, I mean, the internet started as a text medium, and if we would go back to a text-only internet, then nobody would talk about the energy use of the internet. It would be just basically hardly noticeable. And because images are much heavier than text, and then video is even much worse than images. But the thing is that it was not a very attractive idea to get rid of all the images on Low-Tech magazine, because it's a very important part of the attraction of the website, and I would lose a lot of readers. And so we decided to made a dithering plugin, that's kind of old compression technique that strips the image of its colors. And then in the next slide, you see that yeah, and then so it strips the image of its color and then gives a supporting color depending on the category that the article is in. Next slide. Yeah, so here you see the three different colors for the three different categories. It works very nicely for most of the images, not all. We're still working on, for example, what to do with the graphics. But the dithering, and you can compress images in a much less with that they don't look so weird, but they look just normal. So it's not necessary to dither everything to have a low energy website, but it's one option. So it's obviously also a design choice. Yeah, and then another thing we did is we don't, so this explains also the request to the server, why they got down so much. We don't load things like a logo, we don't load a typeface either. So what people see is actually the typeface of their browser. And that's why the website looks different for everyone, depending on your browser or the letter type you chose. And also for, instead of a logo, we just did a kind of typographic move with the arrow, which also saves, it's all little things, but altogether they save a lot of resources. Next slide. Yeah, so we got down the website so light, we made it so light that it can run on a server that consumes only 1 watt of power. So it's an Olimex computer. It's similar to a mobile phone, and the whole website is running on that server for almost 2 years now. It gets quite a lot of traffic, so we had 800,000 visits the first year. We are regularly on Hacker News. That's all no problem. I never had a website that requires so little maintenance. And of course, when you have something that only consumes 1 watt, it becomes also like attractive to self-host it. And when you self-host, it also means that you can choose your own power source. So like I did with the off-grid home office, I put a solar panel on the balcony and I attached the server to it. So that you see in the next slide, that's the original solar panel. It was changed by a smaller one in the meantime. And then next slide. Yeah, and of course, it's solar powered. So at night, even in Barcelona, the sun goes down and it becomes dark. And that's fine because it has a battery that not only gets it through the night, but also through 1, maybe 2 days of bad weather. After that, however, the website goes down and it just disappears. Next slide. And of course, it's not that it shows a message like this website is offline because it's cloudy, because to do that, you actually need a second server that takes over, and then you completely defeat the whole purpose, because then you need a second website that uses energy. So it just disappears and Google says website is not responding. That generates, of course, quite some confusion with readers. So to solve that, and that is the next slide, we make some clues. Like one is the battery meter. You see here it's at 50%, and this really just reflects the voltage of the battery. And that kind of, it's a kind of, you can see what kind of weather it is depending on the hour also in Barcelona. But it shows like, okay, it has a lot of power, so keep on reading. If it's like 6-7%, then you maybe better come back another time. And then the next slide. And this again harks back to the pre-industrial way of dealing with renewable energy and the home office that I have here. We added a weather forecast because, of course, the server is based in Barcelona, but the readers are not in Barcelona, or just a few of them. The readers are everywhere, so they don't know what weather it is. So every day we pull in a weather report and we show that on the website. Next slide. Yeah, and then it's not because the website is offline that you cannot read it. So, for example, if you find a nice article, you want to print it, Marie designed a very nice template that saves a lot of ink and a lot of paper, especially, to just print the article, separate articles. And then next slide is a bit, that's kind of analogous to the typewriter that I'm using when it's really bad weather here. We made a printed version of the website, and so it has the web address on the spine, and as you can see in the next slide, it's simply it's the content of the website. There's a selection made, which you can read without the internet, without energy, even if civilization crashes. I mean, a book keeps accessible, unlike the internet. So, and that kind of made the circle round. Is there another slide? Yeah, but maybe I should stop and skip this. So in a follow-up article, we kind of presented after 1 year all the energy data, the uptime data, the embodied energy of the configuration. So of all the elements, it was wait, let me check it. Yeah, so the hosting of the solar-powered website has a carbon footprint that corresponds to 50 kilometers of driving a car. The uptime was 98%, and since actually we are now on a different system, so there's a smaller solar panel but a bigger battery that you can see. Maybe you can go down the slides pretty quickly until the end. So we made calculations for all the different setups, like different types of batteries, solar panels, embodied energy. So for example, if you have a website that's only read locally, it could be fine if it goes offline at midnight, because almost nobody's gonna watch your website at 3 at night. For Low Tech Magazine, it was not really an option because there's a lot of readers in the United States. But so you could kind of, I mean, it's always a compromise. The sizing of the battery and the solar panel is a compromise between uptime and sustainability. So you can play with that. And we are still playing with that. So since we made the new configuration in beginning this year, the site didn't went offline anymore. So we now have a uptime of 100%, and which means that I need to make everything smaller again. Otherwise, the whole concept is dead. So. So yeah, maybe I should stop here because I see it's very late already.
You're absolutely fine. I mean, in time, but yes, we're getting close to the hour. So there's a question coming in the chat room. For long bad weather times, maybe you should just migrate the website address to another server that's in a more sunny area.
Yeah, so we got, it's one of the feedback that came back a lot of times. So people started offering all kinds of ideas to keep the website online. and this was one of the most common ones. So indeed, if you would put a network of, say, 4 solar-powered websites in different time zones, you could keep it offline even without a battery, more or less, or with very small batteries. And it's true. I mean, that would work. It's just not what we are gonna do, because actually, as I just said, we wanted to go offline. Because why? The website has 2 aims, actually. One is to show the infrastructure behind the internet. That's why we use the battery meter, for example, because people have this idea like the internet is living in the clouds, but it's actually, there's an infrastructure behind it. And the second time is we also want to question this: do we need to be online all the time? And that's why actually it's good that the website goes down now and then. But if you don't want that, then this, for example, could be a nice solution indeed, what is suggested.
So you said that it's a nice compromise between uptime and sustainability, to have the server go down naturally when there's lack of energy in the near vicinity of the server. And if I may ask you a question, I just wondered, did any of the big 5 high-tech companies approached you, the Low-Tech magazine, to try and do something in their office similar? Are you aware of anyone thinking along those lines in terms of, big high-tech companies?
No, there's a lot of people who used our source code to build their own version of the website. So I think it's 20 or 30 by now. I have a hard time trying to follow them all, and some really did it better than we do. I mean, there's lots of things that we would like to include later, but of the high-tech companies, no, I heard nothing. Yeah, I think that will take a bit more time.
Yeah, well, we certainly didn't have the speakers' photos this time on Descon's website, so we tried to save a little bit of energy by not publishing everyone's photo and get their image. So the floor is open to questions. I'm sure people would like to build something like you have, and I wonder, although you published the book, how easy it is to follow the instructions online to build a solar-powered website. Should they get the book, or do you do workshops, or what's the best way?
Well, I think the best way is to go to the About page of the solar-powered website, and there it has basically all the information, so including the links to extra articles with technical information written by Roel and Marie. So it has all the information online. Not in book form, so if you want to build your own website, you have to wait a bit. We will publish a book of the project, but not yet, because the project is not done yet. So normally we should have met around this time for a third time now to continue working on it, but of course that's not possible. So I hope we can continue the work. So, for example, I didn't say that, but we noticed that even though it's a very small server, but it never went above the 30% capacity of CPU capacity. So it can have much more content. So we started moving all the other languages. The website is now translated in 9 languages, I think. So we're all moving that to the solar-powered server, and we also want to move the Novi magazine to the solar-powered server. Because it can just take much more traffic even than it does now. So the work is not done yet. But if everything is done, then we will publish a book with also all the information that you find online in a kind of easy, accessible package.
And do you get people to ask you, hey, Kris, could you host our content on your Web Solar website?
Yes. Yes.
And what do you say to them?
Well, we discussed it because in the beginning there were a lot of people who wanted that, so we thought that could maybe be a way to finance the building of the website, because yeah, it's quite a lot of work and it's not cheap. But the thing is that technically it's possible, but then you need someone who solves all the technical issues, and yeah, I'm afraid that's going to be a full-time job, and nobody was willing to do that actually. But it would be, I mean, so we are not planning to do that, but you could build a whole data center basically in this way, and it would be even more sustainable than our site, because you could fit much more websites on a server, and you could fit much more servers on a solar panel, and then you only need one charge controller. So the embodied energy of the installation would decrease substantially if you kind of scale the idea up. So yeah, if somebody would want to start a solar powered data center, and that would be great.
Well, we're here to expose folks to ideas, so I think let's see what happens. I hope that will be a reality. I don't see why they won't. Last year, for example, at Descon, the first prize went to two engineers who have designed a solar panel that was circling around like a sunflower, following the sun rays, so they would take the maximum of sun rays. Usually, as we saw from your presentation, they are slanted on one way where there's a lot of sun. But even with this small little powered motor that was turning the solar panel around, it was energy efficient, that it captured more sun rays.
Yeah, that's one way. Also in the update article, we added a lot of because there's a lot to improve still at the website. So for example, the efficiency of the system is only 50%. So the electricity used by the server is only half of the electricity produced by the solar panel. So there's a lot of technical things to improve. It's a bit, I mean, the problem is that solar technology and computer technology are not very compatible. So it would be, for example, it would be much better to not use a 12-volt charge controller, but a 5-volt, because there's now also conversion going on into the website. So yeah, this can be improved a lot still. So I think that eventually, if we kind of tweak all the problems and make it more efficient, that you could run it on a solar panel that's maybe half, so maybe 15 watts with half of the battery, and still get an uptime of like 98%. So the first year we had an uptime of 98.2%, meaning that we were offline for 150 hours. So okay, it's not that bad, I think.
You have some more questions in the chat room. It says, what happened with the printed version? At one point you had some issues with the publisher.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a long story. The good news is that the books are again for sale and in good condition. So we keep selling, but we definitely not going to work with the same publisher for the next book. So what they did actually, Lulu.com redesigned their website, and it was a total disaster. The site crashed, the data got lost. I don't even know how many books I sold anymore. But yeah, I don't know. It's a weird story, and also the way they communicated it was not really an example. So if somebody has a better idea for a self-publishing company than print company, then we would be interested to know. And then I see another question: have you recorded, published the harvested energy by day? Not really. There are numbers for the total. So my solar charge controller is not that detailed, but the first year, the server used 9.53 kilowatt hour, and the solar system supplied 18.10 kilowatt hour. So if I remember it well, I think we use around 40-50 watts a day. Could be, no? Yeah, so it's 1 watt of power multiplied by 24 hours, but then you also have the 50% inefficiency in the system, and you have the losses of the battery. So that can be around 40-50 watt per day we need. It's all in this follow-up article, How Sustainable is a Solar-Powered Website? That really has all these data.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Kris. Again, I wonder if we're getting close to an hour, and I would really like to thank everyone who joined us this evening, and Vladan Joler, who spoke before you with this new premiere of performance with some analog equipment mixed with digital. I'm not sure if you had time to follow that. And
no, but, sorry, can I see the videos, or will the videos be online?
Yes, the videos will be online. So and the PDF we will send you as well.
Okay, great.
And we will send you a notice. So we really thank you so much for taking time to be with us tonight. And
you're welcome.
Wonderful presentation. Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch. I'm going to announce. Thank you. Okay, so thanking Kris for his wonderful time. We're going to announce the Capture the Flag, and I'm going to ask Petar Simović from Hacklab Belgrade, who are also to announce Capture the Flag and what it takes, as well as we probably need to play some jingle for that, but we'll see if that happens. We have a 5-minute break before we announce Capture the Flag. So if you want to stay for that, stay with us for that. Otherwise, see you all tomorrow.
Dobrodošli na Descon 6 online od 27. do 31. oktobra.
needs to shut down. We are sorry for the inconvenience. If you were in the middle of something, the information you were working on might be lost. For more information about this error, contact kernel.
Okay, hello everyone. So we'll be announcing CTF, as many of you may saw this link in the chat also. So the CTF is starting now. If you didn't register, please do. Do register. You can like work alone or in teams, and it will be like a standard CTF, like we did it a few years ago also from the first Descon. Actually, when we had only crypto, now we have many other categories. So see what we had for you and try to have fun. This will be like shorter CTF, and we'll be doing it 24 hours. So it will be like speedy. So maybe not sleeping this night. I wish you all the luck and with solving our challenges, and Desiree will also announce now what will winners have, like first 3 places. So that's.
Thank you, Petar. So what we have is no more Bitcoins this year, but we will have 3 prizes, and the first prize winner will get a fully made Climerco, which is the air monitoring device that we have made, and you can see what's the inside of it like. What it does, it measures PM 110 and 2.5 suspension particles in the air, so you can know how clean your air is on your terrace, balcony, or inside your room. The second place will get also a Gabriel Coleman book, either in Serbocrat or in English. We have both. And also the third place will get a set of Descon t-shirts and masks, white, and probably another surprise. So with that, we open Capture the Flag, and those who are not solving Capture the Flag will probably enter the room at the end of the internet. The link is in the chat room, and we'll see you there for a few beats.
Also, if any of the contestants had any issues with the CTF or wanted to ask us something, we will be also on the IRC, and I think all of you received emails with the schedule, with the IRC link, how to log in. So yeah, we'll be there if for any issues and help if it is needed from our side. So yeah, good luck everybody.
Thanks all for joining. We'll be online and move to another room. We'll close this one now. Thanks.